Right. You hear me right, Evelyn?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. And we have some problems with United here.
Oh.
Yes, yes. How much do you know about DIDCOM now? Hello, Svein.
Yeah, I know a bit.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you, Svein?
Good. And you?
I'm very good. It's a little bit rushed before Christmas because we just delivered some important features in the company, and then it suddenly wrapped that up, and then also planned for next year at the same time.
I see.
But that happens. Yes, I think we're just trying to get in our last guy here. And then see if he gets in. Okay, my computer's just freezing a little bit. Yeah, so do you hear us, Uletic? Because we're 3 people that can hear each other.
Yes, I can hear you. Maybe you can hear me now.
We can hear you now. Perfect.
Right, it chooses some default microphone, which is the headset, which is turned off and lying over in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
It can help a lot. And I guess my video is off, but it should be on now. There we go.
Perfect. Good to see you. Are you home now?
Yeah.
This is a real background, right?
Yeah, that's for you to figure out, right? I'm at home, yeah.
Because I wasn't sure if this was real or not, what I see behind you, but yeah, I guess it is. Good. Then we'll just get started. This meeting has set an agenda for where the theme is about the agent layer, which is how much where you do appreciate or you do have a lot of opinions, Unetic. It comes back to the how does the user control the situation, and also we go into the DIDCOM layer and discuss what is that really and why is it necessary, because it has been getting a lot of attention internationally. And then, so we can just, if you guys just fill in your names in attendees, I think that we can, that's good. And if we can just take a round around the table and everyone just introduces themselves so we know who's here. So we get familiar with each other. So Abelay, do you want to begin?
Yeah. So my name is Abelay, and I'm a PhD candidate at NTNU, majoring in computer science. I'm myself interested in self-sovereign identity systems. So with my supervisor, Mayush, we are a member of DIN and also attending these meetings. Shortly. So,
and we have also together delivered an application which is supposed to announce today. I don't know the answer yet, but maybe it works.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I also don't know yet. Let's hope that it will get accepted.
Yeah. That's if you get accepted, there will be a lot of technological breakthroughs going on for both DIN and this group going forward. Svein.
Yeah, my name is Svein Ølnes. I work as a researcher at Vestlandsforskning. That is Western Norway Research Institute in English. We are based in Sogndal, kind of in the middle of South Norway, I'd say. My research area is primarily the use of ICT or digitalization in public sector. But I have worked with blockchain technology for several years now. We have an application together with DIN and DigDir, and we are also waiting for the Research Council to publish the results. I think it is tomorrow. I think we were also part of a couple of other research proposals. Seems they didn't do well. I think it was announced today. I couldn't find any interesting names on the long list. So yeah, but there are several announcements. I'm basically have to listen to what you are working with. I haven't been much into digital identity, decentralized identity, other than writing a proposal and participating in other proposals. So I'm mostly here to hear what you have to say. My camera is not working, so otherwise I'd turn it on, but guess that's okay.
That's fine. Jon?
Yes, John Erik Setsos. I work for Signicat. Been with Signicat for 6 years now. I've been working with identity since about 1995 or something like that. Last 4 years, I've been following the blockchain initiative, the decentralized identity, and given some presentations on the topic. Last couple of years, my attention has become more and more on the user focus, seeing the user perspective. I mean, there's a lot of good technology in here, a lot of good people working on it, but two main items missing from my perspective. One is the user perspective. I mean, simple things as account recovery. And yeah, I know we have all the technical answers, but it hasn't really been solved. And also business models. So, I mean, boring stuff like that from a technology point of view, but I mean, really important if you want something to fly.
Absolutely. And my name is Snorre Edvin, and I'm part of driving DIN forward. I'm also in a company called Diwala, which do try to build, utilize SSI and build the future of skill identity. And we're working in Uganda, which does not have bank ID, so we got to start from scratch. And then it's a very interesting journey to just see how do you basically potentially leapfrog from nothing to the revolution potentially, if everyone finds how we're going to do this properly, specifically from a user's point of view.
Just a comment on bank ID. Most of the world don't have bank ID. We have it in the Nordics. If you leave Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and start talking about centralized identity like we have, they're looking at you with a blank stare and have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Hasn't there been attempts around the world for more centralized ID solutions? You have the India and everything, but that has failed in many ways. But
yeah, Adar is not good. I mean, It's Me in Belgium is probably the most successful one outside the Nordics. Netherlands have two of them, IDIN and DigID. Germany has one public and a couple of private ones that are maybe taking off. UK tried and failed miserably.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and if you look at the numbers, the coverage in the Nordics with 90% coverage and usage, many times per week, nobody is even close to that.
Yeah.
Of course, we should mention Estonia, but that's a special government-only case.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you have this announcement which came out from Germany now recently, where they are actually putting SSI on the roadmap. So they're going forward with this, and it's coming from the highest person up there. So we'll see how it goes. They are doing a lot of good work. So yeah, I cannot read German, but they do have an actual article out. So for those interested, I can share. Good. Let's get back to our agenda. It's about agent layer and DID comms, which is more of one technical piece of how to get the agent layer going. But we were gonna talk about the needed attributes of a solid agent to work, and like how can we make sure it's interoperable, because we want to, I'm not going to speak on your guys' behalf, but we want to try to strive for where there's a more open identity layer, but it's verifiable, just as verifiable as bank ID, but it's more open in the manner of you're not dependent on having a bank ID. You can have your own agent somewhere that provides you with the data and the verification that you need. And then for all this to actually work in an open ecosystem, which can actually build the innovation space and the competition space that we need to move forward in a good manner, things has to be interoperable, and that's where standards comes in. That's where DIDCOM comes in. So we will take a quick look at what's the difference between agents and what capabilities do we need from agents. These are questions we're going to discuss together, and I will just use some of these reference documents as a way to kind of get the discussion going on, because we have the agent layer, and how familiar are you guys with the terminology agent? Jon Erik, where would you place bank ID as an agent in the current ecosystem? Like what would a SIM card be the agent, or how would it be like a custody agent that kind of does every cryptography on your behalf, or how do you kind of?
Good question. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the technical stacks and so on here, but I mean, bank ID. I mean, the SIM card is for bank ID mobile. Yeah. I mean, basic bank ID. I mean, it's up to each bank, right? It's decentralized in that matter. That each bank has their kind of token for that. As for bank ID mobile, the SIM card is. I mean, if you simplify it, it's the second factor, right?
Yeah. But everything is happening on the bank ID side. So meaning that they are basically a custody agent on your behalf.
Exactly. I mean, it's a centralized store. They have all the IDs.
Yeah.
It's a challenge because they're private and they discriminate. So it's not possible for every individual to get it for various reasons. And that's a problem as well from an identity perspective, that not everybody can get it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the infrastructure works as proven. I mean, we've proven that it's possible.
Yeah. And I think just what you're saying right there is key. Is like, okay, we have accepted centralized identity solution, and it's proven to work. What if we were to build bank ID with these standards as a showcase for, okay, hey, we are actually we are a centralized service because we believe in you're not capable of matching your key today. But we're building it on top of all these standards, which is DIDCOM, the DID document, the verifiable credential, and then you basically just choose as a custody agent. You basically just choose one of your anchors, one of your blockchains you want to anchor your data to. But the key itself, you guys, now I'm talking about you guys as a service, because this is probably something Syndicate could look at as a proof of concept in a manner. That would be like, be the custody user and have HSM, like hardware security management for the keys, where you do the cryptographical actions on behalf of the user. Because today we're already doing it and we're trusting it in a bank ID manner. But since bank ID is proprietary, is private, and is blocking, and is not using any standards in a more ecosystem manner, we cannot see that innovation, that kind of strive forward for where, hey, here pops up a new company that will also be a centralized service, but since they're using these standards, they can you can use this identifying layer into your ID port or knob or whatever, because you follow these standards, and then however you accept at what layer they have control over your identity, that's up to you. If you want to go all anarchist and out there, you have the possibility as well, because it's standards, it's open, and you can even build it yourself, because hopefully there will be enough open source modules to just put it together, or someone has done it for you, so there's a repo where 2,000 people are working together on it because that's what they believe in. But it's all communicating together. So I think that kind of your biggest concern, Jon, is that we cannot handle our own keys. I do believe that is a big issue. But we are handling keys per person basis today in a centralized system, and I don't know if it's possible for you to say if Signica does the same in any way.
But I mean, I mean, the quick comment to that is account recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a centralized system. If I lose, my device or whatever, I can always go back and by some secondary means prove who I am and get my keys reissued.
Yeah.
Same thing with your door, right? If you come to your house and you have lost your key to your lock or your car or whatever, you can always go to somebody and help me break open this door and replace the lock or whatever. Even the safe, you have a safe, even that can be brute forced. And that's the difference between the physical locks and the centralized systems. If you have a private key, there is no brute forcing to getting your private key back.
No, but like how do they do it? Let's say bank ID, or I don't know if you guys do the same, but bank ID loses the private key representing you somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, if something goes wrong somewhere, right, and they lose track of me or I lose my device or whatever, I need to re-verify my identity.
Yeah.
Right, and the key is only used in, I mean, it's used only in the process of identification, right? So if then I lose my key and I issue a new one, that isn't a problem. But if you have a private key that's being used, for example, to own assets, you're going to lose the assets as well if you lose the private key.
Instead of going into the assets, I think that you can build more robust guardianship methods around that, and have like we're not going to necessarily go into that, but I think that we need to accept the matter that keys today are not necessarily anymore one-to-one relation, because we can break them up. We can put a copy in the centralized HSSM service that kind of, you need to go and identify yourself if you ever lose your key, meaning that there will be like if someone gets into bank ID and gets my key, they will be able to operate on my behalf. So it doesn't really change that case today. I mean, the difference is, in a pure decentralized, the key is only in my possession, nobody else has it. So if I lose it, it's gone, right? Yeah, but I'm just trying to kind of get into the mindset that, hey, can we accept what we call cloud agents or custody agents that is actually doing all the stuff bank ID today, but are building on the right standards, which means that they're not necessarily they're not necessarily making a lock-in effect here. It's like, okay, you can, if you go to Nav and you click login, they will talk DIDCOM, which will come to, they will request a signature based on a DID document, and they will request a certain verifiable credential that has the credential format of driver's license before they let into the system.
Right. But I mean, you touched on the important point there, because you said, okay, so if my key is lost, I just need to go back and verify. That's the problem. How do you prove who you are when you cannot prove who you are? That's the core of the problem. And especially, in a decentralized where you don't necessarily have your true identity out there. How do you prove that's my key and not somebody else's? But I would turn your comment around. You said, can we build a system with custodians? I would say, if we don't build a system with custodians, this is never going to fly. It's going to end up like PGP.
Yeah. But there has to be an option for those really anarchistic people out there to not be able to do custodian, because in this comment right here, I don't think that how you do the verification is actual custodian. Custodian, in my mindset, is primarily just this part. It's okay, if I have a custody service, they will manage my key access, meaning that I don't have to do all the seed phrasing, and I'm not afraid of losing it, because at some point I can always go and take a picture of my passport, which will not get rid of in a long time, or I will be able to go to a pop-up shop and take a picture of my face and a thumbprint, and they will be able to unlock my key again. I can take my private key with me. Something like that will pop up and exist, or I'll go to the police and they will give me my private key back because they can be a verifying actor.
I should probably just listen, because this is not really my domain. But I'm thinking of solutions popping up for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and we have now companies that take some responsibility in managing multi-signatures. That could be at least an alternative for the sole self-custody model, which is, of course, vulnerable if you think at a larger scale. So could we imagine solutions where we don't hand over the responsibility for our private key for a specific institution or a company, but we split it up and divide it on several either persons or institutions? So to avoid this centralized problem, which is the single point of failure. If we allow a centralized backup, then we are back to square one. We haven't really advanced much. It's just it's more a question from my side.
I believe we need to, not we, but blockchain environments are pushing the boundaries for key management in many ways. There's a lot of good learning there. And as Jon-Erik started, when he introduced himself, he said, okay, I know there exists a lot of key splitting solutions and all that kind of stuff, but it hasn't been solved yet. There are ways of doing it, but how do we actually make sure that all this is verifiable? And that is a really, really important question. But we need to kind of get our terminology straight, where, okay, you have key access, which can be done either custodial or it can be done through multi-signature, through key splitting, and put it one piece at the police, one piece at NA, one piece at your bank, and then you will have some kind of fallback mechanism to be able to trigger this. But that brings back to Jon-Erik's question, which was, okay, how do I know that you're the one that belongs to the key? Which is this governance layer that is certainly unsolved. But you have to have. I'm trying to find some resources here. You have to have some kind of governance layer around, meaning the government or a trusted party that will. Yeah, this is a nice one. That will kind of publish the governance framework of like, okay, how are I able to trust this document? How are you able to receive this piece of credential again? How can you make sure that there's a credential that you can trust and look at when someone tries to reclaim their key? And this is the whole decentralized identity blockchain space. It started at the ground level of, okay, we got crypto. Crypto is working really well. Cryptography. We can do signing. We can send it out, and we are all good. And we forgot about the governance layer for a while until we started to put it into real use cases. Because the crypto is the source for us to be able to do true digital identity, but there needs to be a way to be like, okay, this signature I'm getting here belongs to Abile, and he's now trying to access his Nav portal. And then the question is, how can I trust that? And why can I trust it? And that's the framework that is super, super important for to come in place, to be able to then think about all these interesting solutions of how do I do key recovery to the right person? How do I allow the right person to come in? Do we have to think about? We don't have to think about identifier anymore. We can just think about a piece of verifiable credential that is that piece that authenticates you to that signature. And that's what I think is a groundbreaking part here.
But of course, the problem is if you lost your private key, you can't present any verifiable claims either. So.
Yeah, but that's where we get back to this custody part.
Yeah.
Breaking up. How can we make a way of existing? We have ways to identify ourselves online. We have ways of identifying ourselves with biometrics. Like these, what are the fallback mechanism that makes this feasible? Today, we still have to go and physically put our passport at a bank to get a bank ID. There are solutions looking into that, of course, but that just means that we haven't gotten really far, really, because the one touch point of verifiability is you physically meeting up somewhere and showcasing a piece of identity information that you can trust. But if that can exist as a fallback mechanism somehow, but in the whole identity ecosystem bases itself on these standards, which allows more people to provide you with agents that gives you services that you're happy with. Instead of we all go into one place that's bank ID, but you kind of get this framework from a consortia that runs by the government that kind of sets down the layers for what are the verifiable data that we can trust, who are the issuers we can trust, what are levels of these different verifiable credential types that can, since we have a security or identification layer in Norway, like how is it like 1, 2, 3, 4, Jon, or what does it go by?
The level of assurance, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I normally use the EIDS low, substantial, high, but I guess we're technically 4 levels, but yeah.
So like that kind of, you define that framework and you define the types of verifiable credentials, and then you will basically apply as a, hey, I can be a trusted issuer because I have these models in place to verify something. And then you see much more trusted issuers. You can get much more sound ecosystem of data. And since you're basing yourself on these standards, you will have the movement of data going crisscross instead of everything pointing to bank ID.
Right. So, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like verifiable claims. I think that's a really good idea. I'm not an advocate for bank ID. I'm not saying we should go for that solution. And Abele, I agree. I mean, some sort of splitting solution. I mean, we have Shamir's shared secret stuff. But I mean, I was thinking, how do I want to do recovery on my 1Password, for example? Well, I could take my password and split it using shared secret, and I can hand that out to people. But how? I mean, that's the theory. How would you really do it? I mean, I could email you guys the parts of my key, and then I would trust you to not lose it. And it's all that handling around it. And I mean, if we want to achieve a solution that's usable for 90% of the population, and forget the anarchists. I mean, we're not building a system for those few anarchists. We're building a solution for Aunt Magda. How is Aunt Magda going to use this solution? We can tell her, well, and then you need to split this key and store it in 3 separate spaces. And you hear how stupid that sounds? It's not going to fly. We need to build a system that by default takes into account Aunt Magda. She's going to be using this. She's going to present her verifiable claims.
I completely agree. And now to kind of bring us back to the theme, I did this. I would love to have a conversation on this because I have so many pointers to ways where the UX counts in and where people are asking these questions. So I would love to kind of bring this up as a subject next time, where we kind of do some pre-hand digging into really good use cases where people have done these UX tests. How do I actually get Aunt Magda to use blockchain in a way?
Exactly. So, and we used, you mentioned, I mean, Bitcoin is a very good example of how it not should be done. Like 1/3 of the Bitcoin are gone because people have lost their private keys. And these are not Aunt Magdas. These are trained professionals that should know.
Well, let's discuss that next time. And I think it triggers a lot in everyone. And I think everyone has a little bit really good thoughts about it.
Yeah.
So we know that for next time, I will try to do some
good example. Maybe I'm playing the devil's advocate here, but if we have to assume that Aunt Magda, she is handling her bank ID today. I'm not sure she is, but we have to assume that. But then I agree because we have a quite big portion of our population today that's not capable of using bank ID, either traditional or bank ID for mobile. So we have. I'm not sure the percentage, but we do have quite many illiterate people also in Norway.
And that's a really important point as well. Bank ID is like 90% coverage or something like that. I mean, still 10% does not have it.
Yeah, at least 10% wouldn't be able to use it. Yeah,
exactly. And then should there be some, and you can put that on a future agenda. What about inclusion? So it's a very good point there. To not everybody can use that. By the way, I don't have an Aunt Magda, but I just use it as an example to bring the discussion back to out of the nerdy focus back to trying to see who are we making this for. We're not making it for the nerds.
Yeah, but I love to have.
Absolutely not. It could be also, but I'm now thinking projects, of course. But it would be very interesting to look into who are the actual users. How many of these 90% still rely on their son or daughter or relative to handle this identification? I guess I have a few myself, so I guess I'm not the only one. So there you also have some. There are some gray or dark numbers here.
Yeah,
it's a very good point. I second that to have that because that's it.
Let's put this down. I will also consider inviting There is weekly meeting, I think. Yeah, there's a bi-weekly meeting from where there's product managers who attack this subject, and I will consider inviting some of them for questions. And so whether we can get some more like product managers to think about this as well, to have this discussion.
If you look at this in another way.
Kjetil, I think you're very low. It's very difficult to hear you.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you try to look at this in another way, if you have a bank ID and then you lose your keys, what would you do then? You know, the bank ID would give you a new key. You know, and if you look at it in a similar way, you are certainly deleted. You know, you lost your keys, and it has to be some way of, or someone else had got your keys. And you have to have some register where you could, you know, mark those keys as not gainable to systems, you know.
Yeah.
Or you could also do it like this, where you have, you know, you create just your own new key, and you have this official kind of registry where you certainly mark, you know, the old kind of identity as not a stable one. It's lost, and you could mark your new key as an you know, key that should be the one that represent the other identity, and then that could be verified by, you know, governments and whatever, you know, police. And so it's possible to do this in another way, and the systems that, you know, build upon it might also do something that might, you know, you have to create something like identity access on behalf of, you know,
Yeah.
or you could do, so it's a lot of different kind of way of handling this in the practical world, you know.
Yeah, we will. I'll put it down. I will have to stop you guys now because we need to get a little bit back to the theme. But I think that this is a really important subject, and sitting on the diff Slack on a daily basis, I see these guys have these discussions. I see these guys come with potential solutions. So we're not alone on this, and we need to kind of get. I will do a little bit more strategic planning on the next meet, so we can include more international people to discuss this, because I think it's really important to get a baseline of understanding here, because this is again what it always falls back to. What about that key? And I think that
just a quick comment on a difference here. I mean, bank ID is just one key, and I'm using that, and invalidating it and issuing a new one is fine.
Yeah.
If my private key is now used for 20 different attribute providers to create verifiable claims, invalidating the key means I need to go back to each and every one of those 20 and reissue my verifiable claim credentials.
That's why we need Kerry and the here, and why we have multiple identifiers, so we
or
can.
You are some sort of.
I will stop you guys there now. I have to be strict because we have to try to get to the actual theme here, and then we have something to look forward to next time, and that's good. But back to the agents, which I was the reason for why we ended down the road. But I think that we all agree that, okay, today Bank ID works as a custody agent, and we just have a set two-factor way of using our little piece of SIM card or the actual device that kind of just gives us a code as a two-factor. And that is an approach. Custody agent is an approach. We have also, let's call it cloud agent, which is not as custody agent, because it's just like, okay, you're having your box in the cloud, but we don't have access to it, so you have to make sure that you control key access to it. But what it basically, this agent should allow you to do is to do peer-to-peer communication, which grants us the it enters into DIDCOM. Also, you should be able to do proof signature generation. Like you should be able to say, hey, this identifier belongs to me. And then you should also be able to do verification on the agent, and then key access, and then together with the agents, there is storage, which will not go into right now. But the storage is a whole another subject of how do we make this into a clean, clear, encrypted storage. So for the question, like what is the difference between agents? In the bottom line, they're all there to help you out. They're all there to make your digital life easier, but they can live in certain areas where you lose more, or you give someone else's more and more possible access to who you represent online. And today we have that capability. Like we have the self-issued OpenID. You can run that server at home, but it's not really easy to actually use across the big wide web. You have people who want to basically run their own stuff, but we are lacking certain infrastructure that is shared across the internet to make sure that we can actually choose what level that control we want to have.
Right. Just remember, I mean, that was the original idea between internet in the first place. The open, everybody could run their own mail server, their own FTP server, their own HTTP server, etc. Although technical possible, most people don't, and I think we need to learn from that and say most people won't be running their own.
Absolutely, they won't, and then how can we still bring back the sense of identity back to the internet that wasn't built on identity? It was built on without identity in mind, and then we lost that. We have put a band-aid on top with centralized services, and how can we bring that identity back out to the leaf nodes, which are the users, and what are the levels that need to be addressed to get there. But in terms of then different agents, we have mobile, we have cloud, we have custody. Any other thoughts of type of agents we can have?
Maybe some routing agents, which route your messages, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would that be a module of an agent, or would that be like a separate agent on the side?
It's more on the side, I think. Yeah.
Mobile app, you need a routing agent. But yeah, I think that it all comes down to how do you actually architect the solution.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if we use mobile, we suddenly put the agent in this all outer leaf node. Then we need some more cloud organized agent that can help you connect better to the World Wide Web, and that's where maybe routing agent comes in. But in terms of capabilities we need from an agent, I think this kind of defines this in a very clear way. We need to be able to do peer-to-peer communication, because we don't necessarily want to have to go through Nav if I'm going to talk to this person over here. We don't necessarily want to have to go through bank ID if I'm going to showcase that I'm I. Like we could have done a way where I log into my bank ID and show that to the bouncer, and he would say you're above 18. So basically that the website would prove that you are above 18 because you use bank ID. That's a solution, but you're going via, and that is because the identity of today hasn't been distributed in a good manner. So that's where P2P communication comes in. Like, we want to be able to give the person on the other side a piece of verified data in a simple, fast manner, so they can say, okay, you are who you're supposed to be, and it's coming from issue I trust. And that's where you have, like, how do we do it? You can do it through NFC, QR, HTTP. And if you talk about routing agents, you of course use HTTP. But if it then box transport into itself, as we've done here, we see that these all talk different manners, and that's why we need a second envelope that is making the conversation between these agents a lot easier, which brings us to DIDCOM, because that is the basis for all this verifiable credentials, is the DID document, which we have talked about in the agenda in October, I believe. Yeah, where we went into a lot of the different DID methods, and that is where your key comes in, because it's connected to an identifier. But if you don't build another envelope for each transport, you're gonna start having a lot of issues with interoperability. Do you have anything to add there in terms of why they've seen DIDCOM be a really important application, Ably?
Yeah, can you hear me? Sorry, I had network connection problems. So I think, like, if we build system in this open standard like DIDCOM, or like open protocols like DIDCOM, we will give some choice to people, so they could at least choose whether to use the pure decentralized system, or they could still use some custodials. So in that manner, we can give at least a choice if we migrate to these open standards. In case of DIDCOM, I think it's so it's basically just a secure messaging between people, and it could also work offline by Bluetooth or something. So it's you can imagine it like when we talk to other people in daily life. We don't have to sometimes like verify ourselves. We can just talk. So similarly in DIDCOM, there are some ways where there is no need for verification, like no need to use strong authentication, but you can just communicate. So overall, it's like giving choice for people. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I agree that DIDCOM is a very important means to an end, and how they basically say it is that, well, HTTP and HTTPS is a great envelope for passing messages, but it's just one of the many possible transports you want, right? And then if you just rely on HTTP, you will quickly see that you need a more centralized service to handle it, because, for example, QR codes, they have a limitation on how much space they can have. So if you rely on HTTP through QR codes, because that's a fast way of combining the physical with the digital world, you need to go through a third party to kind of convey your data. But if we're able to make this envelope, which is the DIDCOM, and then it can pass through all these transports, and which again is built on the premise of all these identity standards, which also supports verifiable credentials, you will see that transports are truly safe because the backing of this identifier is always a private key. That means that you can have HTTPS across all transports without even having to have HTTPS necessarily, because HTTPS is just cryptography based of certificates and trust there. But you get exactly the same thing if you're able to get some cryptography into the hands of the users through decentralized identifiers. So I think that the DIDCOM is a very, very, very interesting protocol to think about and to consider as the envelope for passing on messages. And there's a lot of interesting work going on there from DIF, and it's a special DIF working group which are in development and are supporting the Jose standard, which is now very broadly used across the web for cryptography. And then it's supporting all DID methods, and then it has the same like connection handshaking as HTTPS does today, but it's done through DIDCOMs, meaning that you abstract the transport layer from the actual identity messaging. So there's a lot of interesting use cases for specifically DIDCOM. So for you guys who have just seen what DIDCOM is, what do you guys kind of think about the thought there? Like, we have HTTPS, but and any ideas or thoughts that spark when you talk about DIDCOM?
I agree. I mean, layering is always good. Disconnecting the transport from the envelope is always a good idea. So, I mean, no doubt about that. And again, I don't know the details of DIDCOM. I just want to make two quick comments. I have a hard break at 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
One, I see to set the next meeting for January 16th. That's a Saturday.
Yeah, this was random.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's an automatic calendar. I haven't been.
Okay. Yeah. Just a comment. The other one, I think Svein touched on that, is using other people's bank ID, and that's been recognized now. So there may be a change in the financial. There's some new finance regulation in Norway coming into effect next year, recognizing that there's a difference between the owner of the bank ID and who is using it right now. And I was just wondering, is this something that's being addressed in this? I haven't heard that kind of discussion in the decentralized the difference between who owns the credential versus who is presenting it right now.
Yeah.
So there's a future discussion.
There's a lot of discussions going on there because you have in the medical there's a bi-weekly medical focused working group that raises these questions because the medical environment have to tackle old people. And we have a lot of guardians for old people. So there is this whole guardianship discussion going on, and there was this last email came through 3 days ago that talks exactly about this case. I'll find that email.
And also, as was mentioned, I mean, the authorization is also important, but that's sort of not on this layer. But I want to authorize somebody else to act on my behalf in given situations. So that's sort of on a higher level again, but that's also something that's missing from bank ID. But I mean, it's present in the health portal. For example, in the health portal, I can authorize somebody else to act on my behalf.
I think that falls down to both CCAP and OAuth and how that kind of works today and providing authorization tokens on your behalf. But that's completely fine as long as you're able to give some kind of crypto to Leaf nodes. They can give authorization tokens to their cloud agents,
right?
and then you can start working what that's called the digital world we know as today. So yeah. Well, good comments. Anything else you want to share about DIDCOM, Ablay? I think like we can go into the depths of it and be like, see how it's built up. I don't know if this necessarily is the exact forum for it, but like there are there's code existing. It's in JavaScript. You're able to use it. There's simple methods to do key pair generation, packing out a message for recipients, unpacking the message. It uses JSON, which are all very familiar to developers, and there's a lot of great work going on there. But anything last words you want to add, Ablay, based on your
yeah, for me, like I also go through the DIDCOM this week, and for me it seems like very simple. The mechanisms are like they are based on like JWS and JWT, so it's like interoperable standards, and wrapping the message and putting inside the message, you can basically put anything. So you can put some, for example, when you issue the credential, you put it inside the message as an envelope. Or
absolutely, I agree. I think that
live streaming is on.
We now have a bachelor. DIN and NTNU now have a bachelor student who's going to look at interoperability throughout the next half year. Hopefully, some of our research projects will go through, so we get even more resource on building it. But what we see is that, for example, Erenim, who are the leading actors in this space, and they actually state themselves, that's fine, do support a lot of DIDCOM and are pushing the standards and are implementing it immediately into their platform. But again, they are closed source. Everything they do, like everything they build in the matter, is closed source. Even if all their libraries and like DIDCOM and everything is open source, how they architect and put things together is closed source, meaning that we're not able to enable, let's call it fresher developers to go out and say, okay, hey, I can take this packet and build this solution because it's been wrapped in. I have been able to wrap DIDCOM, potential transport layers, and key operations into this packet to enable people to go out and create mobile agents, or even enable people to go out and create cloud agents, because you will see a boom when you do have these open source libraries that helps more developers get the gist of what's going on, instead of having to just work from the ground basis up. Like Erenim, they have provided an SDK, basically done that packet that you can purchase from them, which gives you a way to build an app that allows you to do all these SSI things, but it's nothing open source, and that's what we're hoping that we're able to do, both with this bachelor student and with the research project, to kind of deliver open source agents that's easy to use for developers. Great. You gotta go, Jon. Yeah, Jon left. Svein left, and there's you two guys left. Do you have any questions we want to touch upon, or are we all good? I think that it was a good conversation, and it led us down to a path where there's a really important question we need to ask for next time. But any other questions in relation to DIDCOM and agents that we want to kind of discuss? If not, then I think we're good. Both guys turn off your mics. If you try to talk, then I understand.
Yeah, I think we will have like fruitful discussion hopefully in January, because everyone is kind of interested in team management. So yeah.
Absolutely. It will be interesting to see where we're going. We just need to. Norway needs to get on the ball on this, and we need more people who can put resources on this, because we see other countries going far ahead because they have startups or companies putting their efforts into this. And academia is a great way to start, but you also need companies that has a stake, where the stake is the business model, to step in here and basically take responsibility for some development and push forward, because academia is academia. It's a great place to research and find out answers, but there might be a lack for push or stake if there's no other companies involved. So yeah, Kjetil, you're always available to push Crayon to get them interested in this. We see that Signica is showing up every time. So we hope to see more private companies join the ball on this one. Yes.
Okay, guys, I have to leave at 2. Thank you for discussion, and it was very interesting. And I will definitely join the next meeting. See you soon.
Yeah, perfect. Have a good day. Yes, they're very happy to open source, but they've always been it. But does that mean that they will give their SDK?
No, it don't seems like they are going to do it, but you know, they are even open sources on GitHub. It seems like.
Yeah.
So they are starting, and hope they were, you know.
Evernym is part, like they were the ones that created Sovereign. Sovereign is the first identity network.
Yeah.
And all this got wrapped into Hyperledger, which they are very heavy contributors of.
Yes.
And so I do believe that they have the right mindset.
Yeah.
We need more people putting efforts into more open source, so that we can get these, at least these ground piece or most important components in place, so that for example, DigDir can come and create a solution, or Nav, or whoever wants to come and build on this ecosystem.
Yep.
Well, good.
Yeah, excellent.
Great. I'm happy you stopped by, Kjetil. I'll turn off the stream now, and we can speak Norwegian, and you can have any if you have any questions or any updates you want to share with me.
Yeah, why not?
Let's stop the live stream here.